Go live? Okay, we're live now, I guess. I tried to start the stream through OBS. Oh, nope, don't want that mute. Okay. Okay. It looks like we are live now, so welcome everybody again. So I'm just going to give people a few minutes to filter in here, because I know we are a little bit early. And you'll forgive me again. I'm going to be looking down a lot. It's because I have my laptop here, so that's why I'm looking down all the time. Ideally, I'd have like a table in front of me so that I could, look at the laptop and you could. It's not good cinematography, right, to have the thing I'm looking at out of view, but it's just in my lap, and that's just how the shot ends up going. So I'd rather use the same shot that I use for the other videos than try to do something on the table or something like that. I know we're a little bit early because things were a bit faster to set up than I anticipated they would be, but that's a good thing. So welcome to live stream number 2. This is going to be, so I've got a few things. First, I'm just going to go over some discoveries and some topics of discussion. Okay. Cat, you need to stop. Okay, no, she's playing with the, okay. Hang on, got to deal with my cat. Okay, come here. Albie, you can't play with this. Okay, she's playing with my my microphone, the bag that holds my my lav mic. You know how cats are. In the videos, I edit her out, or I do my best anyway, but it's a live stream. Okay, so I'm going to be talking. I have a few topics of discussion that were not large enough to warrant their own video. So yeah, so they were not large enough to warrant their own video, but I still want to talk about them somewhere. So I guess without further ado, we can go ahead and get started. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, as it says in the title, HDR discoveries. So the first thing I want to talk about is a slight change to my HDR workflow. Well, a slight change and a large change. So the slight change, in my previous video that I made about my HDR workflow, the video about how to grade HDR on an SDR display. And that, that workflow will allow you to create HDR content for YouTube without having an HDR reference display. And that was a workflow that I personally used and continue to use for a lot of projects. But I just wanted to throw out there is one slight adjustment that I've made to that workflow since that video was published. So in the video, I tell you to export the final project as DNxHR HQX 10-bit, I believe, because Resolve does not support, because you need to export in a 10-bit format. You need to export with 10-bit color, and Resolve does not support exporting as H.264 10-bit. Usually when you upload to YouTube, you want to upload H.264, not because there's anything wrong with uploading a higher quality format like ProRes or DNxHR, but just because H.264 is a lot smaller, so it uploads faster, it processes faster. It's just the general recommendation for uploading to YouTube is H.264. There is a 10-bit version of H.264, but Resolve does not offer any way to export H.264 in 10-bit, which you need to do for HDR. So I recommended exporting as DNxHR HQX 10-bit because that's a 10-bit format. And that does work. There's nothing wrong with that. It does work. But I have found an option I found works better for me, because DNx HDR being a high quality codec, it's similar to ProRes, it's similar to Cineform. The file sizes are very large. So it takes up a lot of space on the disk, takes a long time to upload, especially if you have a slow internet connection, and YouTube actually takes longer to process it as well. And while there is no H.264 10-bit option in Resolve, there is an H.265 10-bit option. And so if you have the studio version of Resolve and a recent NVIDIA graphics card, I can't speak to any other configuration, but that's what I have, and this option is available to me. So if you have the studio version of Resolve and you have a recent NVIDIA graphics card, I have an RTX 2080. So RTX 20 series will work, RTX 30 series will work, 10 series maybe, I'm not sure. But if you go into Resolve and you select H.265, there will be an option to use the NVIDIA encoder, not the built-in Resolve encoder. But you can actually use the NVIDIA encoder. And when you choose the NVIDIA encoder, and then you scroll down, you actually unlock an option called main 10. So the normal profile for H.264, H.265 is just called main, right? And that's 8-bit. There's also a main 10 profile, which is the same thing, but with 10-bit color. So if you select H.264, NVIDIA encoder, that will unlock the main 10 profile. And then if you export with that, you will get a 10-bit H.265 file that will work on YouTube for HDR and is significantly smaller than DNx HDR. And as a bonus, the H.265 file will play back in something like the default Windows Media Player or VLC or something like that, can actually play that back and recognize it as HDR, and it'll even tone map it for you. So you can even like open that file in the Windows Media Player, and it will not only play back, but it will recognize it as HDR and tone map it down to SDR for you, which is really nice. And it'll work with like Plex or something like that if you have another media player. So, so that's what I recommend. If you have that option available, again, you go into Resolve, H.265, NVIDIA encoder, main 10 profile. That will give you what I consider a better profile for uploading to YouTube and HDR. Now, I say better in terms of convenience and in terms of workflow, not in terms of quality, because it is true that uploading something like DNx HDR, ProRes, Cineform to YouTube, it will work, and it will theoretically give you a higher image quality because they do have less compression than H.265, and it has been shown experimentally that uploading a higher quality codec to YouTube will yield slightly better results, but not by much, because YouTube's compression is so heavy, is so extreme, that it hardly matters what codec you upload, because YouTube is just going to compress it so heavily anyway that any quality benefit there would be to uploading ProRes over H.265 would be basically erased. It's not to say that there is no difference. There is a ever so slight improvement, but it's barely there. And for the significantly lower file size and upload time and processing time that comes with H.265, I recommend that. So that's just a slight adjustment to my HDR workflow. It's not a big thing. Again, if it works for me. I know that option was not there before when I was on the free version of Resolve, so I believe you do need the studio version, and I believe because it's the NVIDIA encoder, it uses the NVENC encoding hardware within recent NVIDIA graphics cards. So I have a 20 series card, 2080, it has it. I'm sure a 30 series card would as well. 10 series, I'm not sure, and before probably not. So, so there's that. The other topic is, I think, a lot more interesting. So this is based off of a comment. So we're going to, okay, let me find the comment here. I'm in my YouTube studio. When was this? When was this comment made? I'm not seeing it here. I responded. Huh, did this comment get deleted? That's a problem, because I was going to talk about it. Let me see if I can find it in my inbox here. I can't find it in the... I'm guessing it must have been deleted. Let me look on the video. Oh, no, there it is. Okay. So this is in response to, I made a video last year called about HDR formats and metadata. And so this video, so I will post a link to the video I'm talking about in chat. So this video I posted almost a year ago. I'll post this. And so this video I actually uploaded in HDR. This was the second video that was not only about HDR, but was actually uploaded in HDR to YouTube. So this video is available in HDR. But if you look at the main shot of the video, the one with me on the couch and it's dark, there is some very severe compression, particularly on the wall behind me. Because, so I'd recommend looking at the, just looking at the link I posted in chat if you want to see what I'm talking about. But if you look at this shot, so it's me on the couch. I graded it to be really dark because I wanted it to look like I was in a movie theater, you know, watching some HDR stuff on the big screen or whatever. So this is a very dark shot, and there's this smooth gradient wall behind me. It's over there. And the compression on the wall behind me is very severe, more severe than I would expect for a 4K video. The compression is just very, very strong, and there's a lot of banding because of that on the wall behind me. And the reason behind this is a bit of an open question. And I have found some stuff, but let me try to explain this here. So there is a phenomenon on YouTube where if you upload a video in HDR, but you play it back in SDR on an SDR device, there will be some significant compression artifacts which are not present in an HDR video and are not present in an SDR video. But only if you upload an HDR video, but then watch it in SDR, you get these very strange compression artifacts. So again, if you watch the video in HDR on an HDR device, there's no problem. The compression is exactly what you'd expect. If you upload a video in plain SDR like you normally would, it's fine. There's no problem. But if you upload a video in HDR and then watch in SDR, there is some very heavy and unusual compression artifacts present in that video, particularly in the shadows. And I've experimentally verified this with a number of different types of videos. So it's not just this one video. I've seen this on a bunch of videos that I've uploaded in HDR. So why is this happening is the question. Because when you upload an HDR video to YouTube, when you upload a video in HDR, YouTube has to not only process that video as an HDR video, but it also has to generate an SDR conversion of that video, right? Because you have to convert HDR to SDR. So YouTube will process the HDR version for people who have HDR devices, and it'll process an SDR conversion for people who don't. And that's exactly what you want. But there's this compression problem on the SDR conversion. So something is happening on the HDR conversion from HDR to SDR. Something is happening that's different from YouTube just processing an SDR video or just processing an HDR video. So something about that conversion process, there's something going on behind the scenes at YouTube that is causing these strange compression artifacts to appear on the video in SDR. And you might be expecting me to now explain why and exactly what's going on, and the answer is I don't know. I don't know. It's very strange. However, I have found some stuff out. So, going back to this video, so as soon as that video was finished processing, and I noticed that there was this severe compression on the wall, I posted a comment on that video, basically reiterating something that I found on YouTube's documentation. So upon seeing this, I looked at YouTube's documentation to try to figure out why this is happening. And so I'm going to read this quote. So this is a quote from YouTube's documentation about uploading HDR video. So it says, when mastering in PQ, ST2084, much of the signal range is devoted to shadow detail. Digital intermediate codecs like ProRes and DNxHR retain detail across the image range. Your videos may have noise in darker image regions that's visually masked by highlights in the image. YouTube's processing may remove some noise to achieve streaming bit rates. You can get more control by denoising your video before rendering it for upload. Denoising can also help if your video looks too compressed when streamed. We're always working to improve the quality of YouTube videos, including handling this case better. So let's try to break that down. So this is true, but this is true and it makes sense to me as an explanation, but I don't think that's the full story of what's happening here. So it is true that in the PQ gamma curve, the PQ curve that's used for HDR, there is more of the signal range devoted to shadows, because in PQ, 25% of the signal is values below 10 nits, right? The bottom 25% is everything below 10 nits. And the next 25% is 10 to 100. Compared to, in SDR, only the bottom 10% of the signal is dedicated to values below 10 nits. So there's more of the signal range is devoted to shadows in HDR. And that's true. So it does make sense that there would be more detail in the shadows in an HDR video than an SDR one. That makes sense. And detail can also mean noise, because shadows often have noise in them, depending on your grade, depending on your camera. And it is also true that noise can create problems with image compression. That noise can ultimately make your video look worse, because the noise is difficult to compress, so YouTube has to compress things much more heavily to get rid of that detail and achieve the right bit rate. But I don't think that's what's going on here. I see your comment. Hello. I will, if people have questions, if people have just questions about anything, feel free to put them in the chat. This will also be a Q&A later on. So just put any questions you have in the chat and I'll answer them later. But I'm going to stick to this topic for now. So, the problem with this explanation is that, A, this problem happens on videos that do not have noise in the shadows. And I can prove that in a second. And 2, usually when there's noise in a video that is not uniform, when the noise isn't everywhere and the noise is, in one part of the region of the image specifically, then you see compression artifacts on everything else. If you've seen those videos where someone will put up, completely incompressible static noise on half of the frame, and then they have like a normal image, like a face talking on the other half of the frame, the noise is completely incompressible. So the noise does not have any compression artifacts at all, whereas the other half of the image that is compressible is compressed much more heavily than it normally would be. So generally, having noise, while it is incompressible and it does create problems, if it isn't uniform, it isn't the noisy parts that have compression artifacts. It's the non-noisy parts that have compression artifacts, because the noise takes up a disproportionate amount of the bitrate. And going back to the other thing, is this happens on videos that do not have any noise in the shadows. So I wanted to test this, and I went back to that same video, the video about HDR display formats and metadata, because I know that video has a significant problem with this, right? I know that when you upload that video in HDR, those compression artifacts manifest. So I took that video into Resolve, and I did two tests. So the first test I did was I uploaded the video in HDR, and then I uploaded the video in SDR. And I compared the SDR versions. So I compared HDR upload, SDR playback to SDR upload, SDR playback. And sure enough, the version with an HDR upload and SDR playback, the compression is noticeably worse. It's not only worse, but it's different, and I'll get to that as well. This is a big topic. So that confirmed my suspicions, that when you upload an HDR and then playback an SDR, there are additional compression artifacts that are worse than just uploading an SDR in the first place. But then I wanted to test YouTube's explanation about the noise in the shadows being the culprit for this, because this was a very dark image. Honestly, this grade was too dark. I should not have made the grade this dark. I was trying to push it down to make it look like a movie theater. But yeah, this grade was way too dark, and I won't do that again. But regardless, I know that this grade has a problem. So then what I did is I took the same footage into Resolve. Okay, I need to mute my phone, because I've got to do that before the stream. So give me 1 second. Mute my phone real quick. There we go. So I took the same footage into Resolve, and I applied heavy denoising to the shadows, because this was not a very noisy image to begin with. This shot was exposed all the way to the right, and then was brought way down in post. So the exposure was brought way down. It's way exposed to the right. So this was not a very noisy image to begin with. So I already had suspicions that YouTube's explanation about noise in the shadows being the culprit was maybe not the full story, because this was not a very noisy image. But just to be sure, I went in and I applied very heavy denoising, like way stronger than you normally would, because I just completely smeared out all of the detail, right? I put really strong denoising, just get rid of everything. There is no noise in the shadows. And I uploaded that, and same thing. Well, no, it was a little bit better. It was a little bit better, but so I don't think YouTube's explanation about noise in the shadows being the culprit is correct, because I uploaded a version without noise in the shadows, and I did what YouTube said, and I applied denoising. I applied really strong denoising, and the outcome barely changed. So this is weird. And the other weird thing is, not only is this compression artifact stronger, is it more noticeable than normal compression artifacts, because some amount of compression artifacts is inevitable, you know, it's a heavily compressed format, but the compression is different in both spatially and temporally. And I'm actually going to post in chat the test uploads that I did to verify this. So I'm going to post these in chat one after another. So this is the HDR So this is SDR upload, no denoising. So this is a test shot, uploaded in SDR. There's no HDR version. And here is, oh, hang on, let me find the other one first. And here is the exact same clip, HDR upload, no denoising. So this is the same exact clip, but now uploaded in HDR. So, and if you're watching on an SDR screen, so you can compare those two videos side by side. I recommend switching the quality up to 4K just to give it the best possible chance. And if you watch these two videos side by side, you will see the compression is very different on the HDR version. And it's not only different, but it's worse. And you'll see on the HDR version, these compression artifacts have a very strange checkerboard pattern. There's this very weird thing that goes on. And this happens on all HDR videos that I've seen. There's this weird checkerboard compression pattern, almost like something weird is going on with the macro blocks. That, like, it shimmers and, okay, my key light went out. 1 second. Did it overheat? Okay, give me a second here. My light went out. Off. What? Doesn't feel hot. Did this overheat? 43 Celsius. Okay. Well, I have never known this light to overheat before, but okay. Well, we just learned something live. Yeah, I know. It's super dark because my my light went out. I've got some studio lights here off frame. I've got a key light here with a big softbox. I've got a fill light there. I've got a rim light behind me. And the light just blinked out. Now you are dark. What? And the light just went out suddenly. I don't know what's going on. So we learned something live. Apparently this light can overheat, which has never happened before. It's the Godox SL60W. It's been on for about an hour, a little over an hour actually. And apparently it must have overheated because it just went out suddenly. And it's on wall power, so it's not a battery thing. Anyway, well, if it happens again, then we'll have to figure something out. But anyway, so we learned something. Isn't that what this channel's all about? But anyway, so if you look at, oh yeah, so the guy, oh, are you saying it was super dark about the video? Yeah, so I mentioned that before. The clips are very dark because I wanted to grade them to be very dark. I went too far, and that's something I've realized in the years since I posted that video. That grade is way too dark. I should not have gone that far with it, but, you know, learning experience. But I use that particular clip because I know that it is particularly susceptible to this compression problem. So if you look at the HDR version that I posted and compare it side by side to the SDR version, you will see that the HDR version has this weird checkerboard pattern in the compression artifacts that sort of flickers and shimmers and shifts frame by frame by frame by frame. And so if you look at this side by side with the SDR version, I think everyone would agree the compression on the HDR version is worse, right? I think pretty much everyone would agree with that. And it's not only worse, but it's different. There's some different kind of compression artifact going on here. And that only happens when you upload an HDR and watch an SDR. If you watch in HDR, it's not there. If you upload an SDR, it's not there. It's only when you upload an HDR but then watch an SDR that this happens. And I don't know why. So, I've thought that maybe they're using like a different codec or something, but I looked at the stats for nerds. It's the same codec regardless. So I don't know why this is happening, but I did get a comment on the original video that offered a potential explanation. And I don't think that comment is correct, but I want to go over it anyway because it led me down a really interesting rabbit hole. So on this original video, the HDR display formats and metadata video, someone named Rainboom Dash left a wait, what did I post here? Oh yeah, so left a comment on the original video, and I'm going to read it out here. It says, YouTube also gives 5 times less bitrate to the SDR stream when an HDR1 is available, which certainly doesn't help. Now that's not true, but that was the comment that was left. And I responded and I said, where did you read this? Because I'd never heard this before, right? You know, if YouTube's giving a lower bitrate to HDR uploads, then I want to know about that because that's a problem. But so I asked where they read this, and they explained that if you use a YouTube video downloader, you can see that the 2160p SDR stream is about 2.5 megabits per second, and the HDR stream is around 13 megabits per second. And so I said basically, you know, thanks for letting me know, I'll look into that. Yeah, exactly. Similar thing with tests I uploaded HDR, blotches of color moving around the video. Exactly. See, I'm not alone. Someone else has had this problem. I feel like I'm the only one in the world who knows about this and cares about this. But someone else has had the problem, so thank you. But so somebody left a comment saying that YouTube gives a lower bitrate to videos when they're uploaded in HDR. They give a lower bitrate to the SDR version when they're uploaded in HDR. Now, I'd never heard of this, but I wanted to validate this. And the end result is that's not true. However, I did discover something interesting. So what I did was I went around and I used a YouTube downloader to not actually download the videos, but a YouTube downloader will give you the actual file size of the version that YouTube will stream to you. So YouTube doesn't stream videos at the same bitrate they were uploaded at. They apply additional compression and they stream it at some other bitrate. And so you can actually find out the bitrate of your video by putting it into YouTube downloader, and it'll tell you the file size of all the different resolution options. And from that and the length, you can figure out the bitrate. So I went around and I put a bunch of different videos. I compiled a whole Excel spreadsheet of YouTube videos and their bit rates, because I wanted to see if there was any sort of correlation between having HDR and having a lower bit rate. So I wanted to see if there's any sort of correlation there. And the end result is there isn't. I tried a bunch of different videos, both SDR and HDR, at different resolutions with different amounts of complexity to them, and I was not able to find any correlation between having HDR and having a lower bitrate. Now, granted, the HDR version of the stream will have a higher bitrate than the SDR version of the stream. But what I mean is the SDR version of the stream will not have a lower bitrate than just uploading in SDR in the first place. At least not in a significant way. Certainly not 5 times like the commenter suggested. Now, I'm not saying this to criticize the commenter, because they brought something to my attention and I learned something. So I'm glad they did. But yeah, so I was not able to find any correlation between uploading in HDR and having a lower bitrate. But I did discover that the bitrate YouTube provides for their videos is very variable. I found in a bunch of different videos I tried, all at 4K, I found bit rates ranging anywhere from about like 2 megabits per second to like 22 megabits per second. So there's a very wide range, clustered around about 10. Most 4K YouTube videos in SDR are 10-ish megabits per second. Now that's using the VP9 codec. So that's not that you can't compare that to H.264. YouTube is using the VP9 codec, which is more efficient than H.264. So it's more like H.265 in terms of compression, in terms of compression efficiency. But the bitrate that YouTube serves for 4K videos is very variable. Again, I've seen values ranging anywhere from 2 megabits per second to 22 megabits per second. All at 4K, all at the same resolution. So, and what that's telling me about the way that YouTube encodes the videos behind the stream is, behind the scenes, is that they have a highly variable bitrate. Now this is probably not new information to most people, but when you encode a video with a lossy codec like H.264, you can choose to encode it with a variable bitrate where the bitrate will actually increase and decrease depending on the complexity of the scene. If the scene is more complex, then it'll use a higher bitrate so that there's fewer compression artifacts. But yeah, so YouTube uses a highly variable bitrate. There's a lot of range there. And it also seems that the maximum bitrate they've set is around 22, 23 megabits per second. That's the highest bitrate I was able to find. And the way I tested this is I found that slow-mo guys video where they basically just like dump a bunch of glitter on a slow-mo camera to create just incompressible chaos, right? To really put YouTube's compression algorithm to test. So it's the most compression unfriendly video I could think of. And they uploaded that video in 8K50. And even the 8K50 version of that stream that is as incompressible as it gets, as compression unfriendly as it gets, is only around 23 megabits per second. And also interestingly with that video, the 4K version and the 8K version were actually at the same bitrate. The 4K version of that slow-mo guys video and the 8K version of that slow-mo guys video had the exact same bitrate, regardless of the resolution difference. Now the 8K version still looked better because heavier compression but at a higher resolution, it still did end up looking better in my opinion, but the bitrate was about the same. And that tells me that there's a cap, right? That there's a cap to how high YouTube will go, because this video is almost totally, the main portion of the video is almost totally incompressible and uploaded in 8K, and it still would not go above this threshold. So the maximum bitrate YouTube will serve in VP9 is about 23 megabits per second. That I have found. I could be wrong, it could be slightly different, but that's what I found. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. So it sort of led me down a rabbit hole investigating the bitrate that YouTube serves. So there is no correlation between HDR and bitrate, but it seems to be most correlated to the complexity of the video. It seems to correspond to how much compression is required. And the more easily compressible the video is, the lower a bitrate YouTube will give it. So YouTube appears to be going for a more of a constant quality approach than a constant bitrate approach, which is valid. I just think it was interesting to discover. So Guy Lauer asked, did you find a solution for this issue? My theories use different HDR methods like HLG or Dolby. I have not found a solution to this problem. And I don't think there is one besides YouTube fixing their stuff. Because you can't upload Dolby Vision to YouTube. It does not support it. So uploading Dolby Vision would not make a difference. And I have not tried HLG, but I don't think it would matter. That's actually a good question. I should try that. I should try uploading HLG because YouTube does support it. I've not tried HLG. I don't think that would make a difference though. I think what's going on is that YouTube is using some sort of different compression scheme for converting, when they convert HDR to SDR, there is some different compression scheme being applied behind the scenes. And YouTube must have come up with this as some sort of optimization. You know, as they were developing HDR for YouTube, they must have found that whatever this is yielded either better streaming quality, lower bit rates, better processing on their end. I don't know what they hope to achieve, but regardless, something different appears to be happening on YouTube's end. And I don't think it's a problem that can be solved on the user's end. I think YouTube needs to fix their stuff. I think this is a problem, and they need to work on it. But I don't really have a solution. I'm just throwing it out there as something that I have run into. And if anybody does find a solution, please message me. Please let me know. Leave a comment or something, because I really want a solution to this problem. It bugs me a lot that this is happening. But yeah, so if somebody does find a solution or part of a solution, please let me know. But no, I do not have a solution to this problem as of right now. A commenter says, your video explaining HDR formats helped me clear everything up. You're the only one explaining it so thoroughly. Thank you. So those were all of the topics that I wanted to cover. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Not just about the stuff I talked about. I'm open to questions about other stuff as well. Any tech questions you have. I'm also going to momentarily, I'm going to plug my Discord server, which is a bit of a ghost town right now. I'm gonna be honest. There aren't many people in there, but I would like to get a bit of a community going. So I'm just gonna plug my VTE Discord right there, if anyone wants to join. So while I'm waiting for questions, I might as well talk about, so I know it's been a while since I've uploaded a video. I don't know when the next video is going to come out. I do have the concept ready, but yeah, videos have been a bit slow going. They've been a bit slow going because it's because of a lot of reasons. Mainly, I've just been busy. I've just been really busy, and there's been a lot going on, so it's been hard to find time to do VTE writing and shooting and editing, because as I've gotten better, it's taken longer and longer to make each video, because my standards have gone up for what I consider acceptable. But it says that the Discord invitation is not valid. Interesting. Okay. I might have to fix that. Okay, expire after never. Generate new link. Okay. Let's try this. See if that works. If that link is broken, I might need to go around and update it in my video descriptions. Invite invalid. Huh. Okay, I guess it must have expired. Okay, well, I'll have to go through and update the descriptions on my videos. But there's a new link. Thank you for letting me know. So yeah, I'll wait a few more minutes for questions. HDR on a phone is still very messy. Everything looks different across different devices. I mean, yeah, that's kind of just the way it is, you know. Thank you. So HDR on a phone is still very messy. Yeah, so it really is. It's thanks for the videos you made on HDR. Help me with my HDR creation journey. Thank you. Yeah, HDR is something I'm really interested in, and if you rewind this live stream, I just talked about it for about 45 minutes. So yeah. So yeah, HDR on a phone, it's messy because HDR displays are kind of all over the place, because they are basically, the reason that HDR is more inconsistent in terms of displays than it is than SDR is because for a long time now, the capabilities of our display technology have been well above the SDR standard. So the SDR standard is a very low bar. Being able to display SDR accurately is not very difficult with modern display technology. It's not very expensive. You know, you can make a reasonably accurate SDR display for not that much, right? So most displays now are pretty accurate in SDR. Like, I mean, there's still variation, but they're reasonably accurate in SDR. But the same is not true of HDR, because in HDR, the theoretical, like the HDR standard is so far above our current display technology that there are literally no displays on the planet that can reproduce HDR with perfect accuracy. If you talk about, because the highest HDR standard, Dolby Vision, allows brightnesses up to 10,000 nits are permitted in PQ. And there are literally no displays on the planet that I'm aware of which are capable of displaying a Dolby Vision image with perfect accuracy, including the full brightness range. It just don't exist. We don't have the technology to make displays that can do that yet. And you can get displays that can do a very reasonable subset. You can do 1,000 nits, 2,000 nits, 3,000 nits. It's all very possible. They're expensive. But yeah, because we've sort of moved from where, with SDR, where the display standard is far behind our display technology, and now we're working on HDR, where the display standard is far ahead of our display technology. And because the theoretical standard is so far beyond what we can actually do for a reasonable price, it's sort of left up in the air to display manufacturers. Like, your display is not going to be able to reproduce HDR accurately. So how do you want to do the tone mapping? How do you want to handle out-of-range values? How do you want to, do you want to map the full Dolby Vision range? Do you want to map only up to 1,000 nits? Do you want to do a roll-off? Do you want to do hard clipping? There's a lot of, it's sort of left open-ended. If your display can't reproduce HDR accurately, which for a reasonable price it can't, then you'll have the question of what to do then, and that's an open question. So that's why there's a lot of variability among HDR displays, and which every phone comes with some presets to choose how tone mapping works. I agree. That would be awesome. I'm gonna go even a step further. Not all phones. I want all displays to give the user control over the HDR tone mapping. Like, why not? It'd be great. I know most people won't care, but us enthusiasts will. Now, does the HDR format uploaded on YouTube make a difference on how it appears on an SDR monitor? Yes. And that's what I spent this live stream talking about. So I'm not going to rehash that, but rewind this live stream, watch it through. Yes, it does. And I spent about 40 minutes talking about it. So the answer is yes. Yeah, so I also wish that that there was more control over the tone mapping on your display. Professional ones will offer you those controls, but cheaper ones won't. Now I now have a reasonably accurate reference display. It's right there. It's my TV. There are some TVs that will allow you to calibrate them properly, and I have a video planned about this subject because I have reworked my HDR workflow. There are, and I'm just going to give you a bit of a teaser here, some LG OLED displays will actually allow you to upload your own calibration profile to the display itself. So you can actually buy a color image, and I've done this on my display. You can buy a color emitter and buy some calibration software, connect them to your TV, and you can actually upload a calibration profile to your TV, and it'll be persistent across all modes well, not all modes, it'll be persistent across all devices. And you're basically calibrating it in the same way it would be calibrated at the factory. So if you don't like the way your LG TV handles HDR tone mapping out of the box, you can tone map it again yourself, but correctly this time. And I've done that, and I've been able to get a display that is quite accurate at HDR up to around 800 nits. So, and it costs a lot, but not as much as a reference display. So yeah, that's just a bit of a teaser. I do have a full video planned on this subject because it's really cool. So I've found a way to actually monitor in HDR, not for free. My previous tutorial was how to do it for free if you don't have any extra hardware. But I've been able to find what I consider the best bang for the buck HDR grading setup, where the display is not as accurate as a reference monitor, but it is still accurate enough for most purposes. So yeah, that is all I have. I'll give a couple minutes if anyone has additional questions. Yeah, my biggest recommendation, if you can't get an HDR, if you can't get a properly calibrated HDR display, because those can be expensive, my recommendation is to watch on a bunch of different displays, a bunch of different HDR displays, because while they will all be inaccurate, none of them will show you what it's really supposed to look like. They'll be inaccurate in different ways, and so you can sort of get a more general idea of what's going on. What is it that defines the HDR format, Dolby HDR Plus? Is it the structure, the metadata? I mean, how does a Dolby Vision video differ from an HDR 10 Plus one? Yes, it's the metadata. So, I mean, there's standards like everything. The three main standards that are out there now are HDR 10, HDR 10 Plus, and Dolby Vision. And so they all use the same gamma curve, and that is ST2084. They use the same gamma. They use the same gamut for the most part, and that's Rec 2020. The difference between them is the metadata and what's permitted in each format. So HDR10 has static metadata, so there's only one set of max luminance and average luminance that is across the entire video. So it has static metadata, up to 1,000 nits of brightness, and it's 10-bit. How long does YouTube render your video into HDR? It takes a while. It takes about a day usually. Yeah, HDR10 static metadata up to 1,000 nits, 10-bit. HDR10 Plus is the same thing, but with dynamic metadata, and I believe up to 2,000 nits brightness is permitted. Dolby Vision is the best. It allows the full 10,000 nit range. It has even better dynamic metadata. Dolby Vision, from a technical perspective, is the best HDR standard. It just happens to be proprietary. HDR10 and HDR10 Plus are open standards, and whereas Dolby Vision, it's proprietary standard, so it's not as accessible because there are situations where you do need to pay a license fee to Dolby in order to use it. HDR10 Plus is not well supported in Resolve also. Resolve has no trouble. Resolve HDR10 is a breeze. Dolby Vision is actually better supported than HDR10 Plus. You can make Dolby Vision content in Resolve Studio, but if you want the full functionality, you have to pay for a Dolby license. So you can make a Dolby Vision master file in Resolve Studio, but some of the functionality behind creating the SDR trim is locked behind a paywall, and you have to have a Dolby license that you buy separately for that. And in HDR10 Plus, while it is an open standard and there's no licenses you have to buy, Resolve just does not support HDR10 Plus very well. It will allow you to create HDR10 Plus metadata and export that to a JSON, but it won't actually attach you can't actually export a video file with HDR10 plus metadata baked in. You have to export the video and the metadata separately and then combine them in a different program. So it does not support HDR10 plus very well currently. I mean, the fastest I had was 1 day for a 30-minute video. The slowest I had was 7 days. Yeah, it sucks. I feel for you. Yeah. For me, in my experience, when I upload an HDR video, the SDR version will process reasonably quickly, but the HDR version can take upwards of a day to be available. And of course, it depends on the length of the video too. But yeah, no, it definitely takes longer to process an HDR video into HDR. However, the SDR version should be available faster, at least in my experience. So yeah. All right, well, I think that about does it. So unless there are any final questions, I will probably go ahead and sign off soon. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for coming. I don't know when there will be another video. We'll see. I'm pretty busy, so I don't want to make any promises about when the next video will be, but I do have one planned, and it will be happening at some point. So, okay. Thank you everyone for watching, and goodbye.